YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another NFL free agency grades video. This is our fifth one, 5 videos full of signing grades. I made a playlist full of all those videos. I'm going to take that link and I'll pin it right in the comments for you guys. You can check out all those, pretty easy access there. So yeah, in the comments, more of these to come. You know, we're through 5 and we already got some big free agents still available. Some big time receivers, Trent Williams available. So a lot more to go here, and no big trades happened yet too. So we'll grade the big trades once they go down. I'd imagine some will in the next few days. We're just getting started here. So you're going to want to subscribe to our channel. Full NFL content that includes the NFL draft. Cannot wait for that. We'll have you covered. Follow our Twitter for breaking news, breaking down that news before it gets to the YouTube channel here. There's a link down below for that as well. It's a must follow. And check out walkthemock.com if you're going to sign up. Use code GOATHOUSE. Very cool draft simulator. You can create your own lobbies, join lobbies that are going on nonstop. So check it out. Here's our Twitter, at GoatHouse NFL again. Yeah, always talking. And we'll talk more about the available free agents maybe tonight here. And maybe where some good fits are for those players. Again, I can't believe the receivers that are still left. It's ridiculous. They're asking for too much money out there. Draft class is really good, so that'll be why. Speaking of receivers, a pretty good one did come off the board here. I didn't even plan that. It just worked out so well talking about receivers and Marvin Jones. I totally forgot he was first on the list here. So that worked out. 2-year, $14.5 million for Marvin Jones. I've been saying this guy's criminally underrated for so long. He's a very solid receiver. Has minor injuries pop up here and there, but so good, a downfield threat for sure. Pretty damn consistent as well. And yeah, I like this deal for the Jaguars. You know, DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, a couple other guys, but I really like those 3 guys there for maybe Trevor Lawrence. $7.25 million. We can see where the receiver market is probably because of the draft class. But I looking at what Aguilar got at 13, Corey Davis got 12.5. I know those guys are a little younger than him, but that's a pretty big gap. I gotta give the Jaguars an A+ for this one. This is tremendous value. I'm a big Marvin Jones guy. Really gonna spread that field out with that's gonna be fun. The more I'm thinking about it, Marvin Jones, DJ Chark will take it downfield. They'll keep the secondary on their toes. And Laviska Shenault, this is actually a big win now I'm thinking about for Laviska Shenault. They'll use him underneath a bit. I mean, he can win downfield as well, but they're gonna get him the ball underneath. A lot more now, I believe. So that's going to be fantastic. That's a good signing. I know people were probably looking for Kenny Golladay, a different Lions receiver, but so I know it's not that, but it's still tremendous value. It still helps the team out a lot, and you're not overspending, of course. So that's a good one there. Couple quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor to the Texans, 1 year, $6 million. It's another one of those incentive-based contracts that have been given out to the quarterbacks, like every single quarterback pretty much here to the Texans, though. Pretty interesting. We know Tyrod Taylor has, experience playing quite a bit, mainly with the Bills, a little bit with the Browns there, and, 1 game with the Chargers before the weird injury pregame in week 2. But, yeah, so that's interesting. I guess it's an insurance plan here in case Deshaun Watson's not going to be playing, holding out. They plan on letting him holding out rather than trading him, so that's a different story, though. That's a different discussion that we probably discussed too much of. But, yeah, it's incentive-based. It's a really good backup, that could potentially be the starter. So I like it. It kind of stings a little bit that you had to do this, but they kind of had to do it. And looking at the value, looking at the contract, I think it's pretty solid. I'll give it an A. Again, it was originally reported more than $6 million, but that's very incentive based. If he plays and if he plays somewhat well, and then obviously I'd be happy giving him that money. So I give it an A. I like these incentive based contracts given out to the quarterbacks. They make a lot of sense. Now, pretty much all of them have been that way, but, the big one today, Andy Dalton's is really not. There's some incentives in it, but it goes from 10 to 13. Meanwhile, you got guys like Jameis Winston, it's like 5 to 12.5. Cam Newton, 4 to the 14's pretty high, but still 4 to 14. Tyrod Taylor we just talked about. So for some reason, Andy Dalton's is not like that, but you start to think about it. Why would you make those other ones incentive-based? Just in case he doesn't, for an example, Jameis Winston, even though I do think he's going to start. In case Taysom Hill starts and Jameis Winston doesn't work out, doesn't play, we're not paying him all that money to be a backup. He has to earn that. So it makes sense. So this almost tells us two things. Either he's pretty much the guy, they expect him to be the guy, or they didn't really, the Bears didn't really want to waste their time, making the incentive deal where it was kind of just whatever, right now it looks like he's going to play. So that's kind of the part I don't like. I know most Twitter's going wild with this, the Bears fan base. The reason they don't like this is because, they, for some reason, they actually thought they were getting Russell Wilson. I tried to say that was, well, not all of them, but a lot of them really, really just hoped, and that probably, turn it into expectations, but it wasn't really realistic. And then, it's kind of a dagger when something like this happens. But this was to be expected, really. Andy Dalton, Alex Smith, something like that was to be expected. So really now is not the time Bears fans should be upset. It should have been when they kept, Ryan Pace. They really needed to go in a rebuild mode. It's what they really need to do. And they're not doing that. That's kind of my problem with this whole thing with the Bears. It's, I can go on about the Bears. It's kind of because, those guys want to win right now because they're on thin ice. They restructured some deals, push, Khalil Mack's basically untradeable at this point because the restructure, what they did to his contract, bigger cap hits in the future, basically untradeable. So those moves, you do those moves, it's okay if you can win a Super Bowl now. Bears couldn't win. They can't win a Super Bowl now, but they can kind of make it that way. But then you go get Andy Dalton. It's kind of like, we're doing moves that we're going to win now, and we have to win now with these moves, or it's kind of a fail, kind of the restructures, and it's kind of like, making these deals, so it's tough. At the same time, there wasn't really a lot of options out there for them, but they're kind of scattered all over the place. But what they're doing outside of Andy Dalton doesn't really, I guess, go into the grade for Andy Dalton. But like I said, I'm not really a big fan of the lack of incentives here. I think he fits the system. I wish it was because what if they move up in the draft, get a guy, and they want to start that guy right away, and they're paying Andy Dalton to sit on the bench. I give it a C-. I'm not really thrilled with it. I think he can be better than Mitchell Trubisky. Bears fans probably rather have Trubisky. It's pretty close, but yeah, I'm not in love with the contract. It's not overly expensive, but it just feels like a go big or go home type situation for the Bears too. Like, you might as well just keep Foles in this situation. In this, yeah. I'm not. C- might be generous at this point, but they didn't have a whole lot of options to deal with there. I do think he's a fit. We're gonna roll with it. We're gonna move on here. Derek Wolfe is next to the Ravens. It's an interesting one because I don't really like 3 years, probably too much, not a 1 or 2 year deal. I do think it's kind of front based where they, in a way where they can cut him, in year 2 or 3 and they save money because it is likely, him aging, has some injury concern. That might be the case. But, my logic on that always was, if you plan on cutting the guy before that, year 3 or whatever, then don't sign him to the 3-year deal in the first place. So, but at the same time, with that being said, I don't really like that part of it. That being said, $4 million per year is pretty damn good value. So you kind of go from there's things I really don't like, but then the value is ridiculous because Derek Wolfe at this moment for year 1, maybe not the third year of the contract, is, I think, more valuable than $4 million. So it's a tough one to grade because of that. Overall, I'm mainly grading on value. I think it's good value for right now, so I'm going to give it a B+. Kind of an interesting one to grade. I mean, he starts on the D-line, with Campbell and Williams there, so it's a really good front three there. But maybe a guy like Matabuke steps up. We'll see. But I'll give it a B+ because I do think, per year, probably a little more valuable right now, but that was kind of on a 1-year deal, so that's where I'm at with that one. It's kind of an interesting one. Next, Emmanuel Sanders, Cup of the Saints, goes to the Bills. Another interesting one because they cut John Brown and they clear about $7.9 million. They sign Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders and John Brown are like just so much. They're just the same player pretty much. The same type of receiver. It's kind of the same traits. They're deep speed receivers. And they both kind of have that injury concern. It's almost guaranteed that they're going to miss some time, both of them, within the year. They pretty much save money by getting a very, very similar player here, so that's kind of the good thing. John Brown got a little more left in the tank because he's younger, but I do think So that kind of sides toward John Brown, what side towards Emmanuel Sanders. I think Emmanuel Sanders is, I think John Brown sometimes relies on his speed, his athletic ability sometimes. There's sometimes where he'll do, he's got good footwork. So minus the footwork, other than that, is he the greatest technician, compared to Sanders? So there's ways that sides with Sanders, things that side with Brown, even though they're very similar receivers. Again, not that, they saved that $7.9 million in terms of cap with John Brown. The cap hit's going to be under 6 here for Emmanuel Sanders. So that looks pretty good. There's two things I really don't love. I don't like adding a receiver that you almost, in a way, he could miss time. It's a solid shot. That's kind of what your problem was with John Brown. And, I think you cut John Brown because you kind of want to go big, but their going big was getting their own guys back, which is good. You did need your own guys back, but almost, I guess they can get a solid guy, at the end of the first round if they want, they could add another position, of course, but so I'm kind of on the fence about it. Overall, it fits kind of Josh Allen ball here. I'll give it a B because the injury concern, I thought getting rid of John Brown, I feel like you might as well keep him, unless you're going to get a big time addition at that specific spot, or at an edge rush position because of that cut. That really wasn't the case. So it's kind of back and forth. There's really good positives here. There's some negatives, but overall, if he's on the field, just like John Brown, if he's on the field, he's going to be pretty productive because he fits. So we'll see. Next up, Poe Ford goes back to the Seahawks. 2-year, $14 million was restricted free agent, so the tender was a possibility. And that is my problem with the tender in the NFL. I don't like the tender, and get $7 million per year. Basically, what happened here is, the tender. You put a tender on him, he gets that 3 point whatever million it is, but a team could sign him. But then the Seahawks get the draft pick. If they sign him. If not, then he gets that money. That's what he earns that year. So basically, the Seahawks just had complete leverage over Poe Ford here. Basically, you accept this deal that's 2 years, a little bit more than, of course, than the tender. About to say franchise tag, and then, if you don't accept it, then you're gonna get the tender. So I think that that's why I really don't like the tender, because they're pretty much forced. But at the same time, why are you not signing a 1 year deal? Because you're gonna get more money next year when you're not a restricted free agent. So I don't know if his agent did a good job here. Does he have an agent? That's kind of what I'm asking here. Because I think if you didn't want to get the tender, you wanted to get a little bit more money. I'm having a hard time spitting this out. If you didn't want to get the tender, and you just wanted to accept this because it's more than the tender, then why didn't you do a 1 year deal? That's kind of what I'm wondering here. So 2 year, $14 million. This is a fantastic deal. Really, what I'm getting down to, it's an A+ deal, and I think it's Seahawks had leverage. It felt like somewhat easy to get a deal done here, that favored them, but just making sure there's no news here. I'm always doing this. But yeah, Poe Ford's a fantastic young defensive tackle that can play plays nose, plays D tackle. He moves around a bit, and I thought he'd get a little bit more money in this. So I think it's a fantastic deal for the Seahawks and Poe Ford. But again, trying to explain the tender situation. Maybe not everyone knows how the tender works, but I just don't like it. But again, he probably should have taken a 1 year deal then get to next year, and he's not a restricted free agent anymore. So then nobody has leverage over him. So. That's why I really don't like it, but that's a fantastic deal for the Seahawks. Team friendly, to say the least. Then we move on. More Seahawks. Keller Witherspoon, 1 year, $4 million. I gave it an A. I think Witherspoon still has some upside. I liked him a lot out of Colorado's, but a little disappointing at times. When he came in and started at the end of last year, he looked pretty promising. Of course, you would, Shaquille Griffin's better, but with that amount of money, the Seahawks let him walk. And it is a downgrade, but we're grading it on the value of the specific contract. My phone's going off again. Washington Football is signing William Jackson. That's a big time signing here. So that'll be in tomorrow's grade video. Of course, that happened when I started recording. I just knew it was going to happen. But yeah, low risk, maybe high reward. It's a 1-year deal, so not crazy high reward here, but maybe for this year. But, cheap. Witherspoon's got some upside, gave it an A. Malcolm Brown to the Jaguars. There's actually a trade. We don't know the specific details on the trade, but they traded for Malcolm Brown. So I'm not grading the trade here. It's a guy that was going to get cut. So the trade grade would be different. We'll grade that on Twitter because it's a smaller one. But then they re-signed him 2 years, $11 million. It's a pretty good deal for a nose tackle that could play D tackle. They kind of needed that because it felt like they got Giad Ward, who's going to play D end. Roy Robertson Harris, is he a D end in that 3-4, or is he a D tackle? Probably going to play D tackle, but he's kind of a guy that, borderline either one. And then you have a nose tackle in Tyson Alualo. So you kind of needed a guy that could fill in that D tackle, but then, could play that nose. I think that helps a bit. B+. This was kind of old news. We just didn't have the details in the last video. Chidobe Awuzie, 3 years, $21.75 million. Yeah, it's a little more than I would expect him to get, just a little bit, but they didn't want to overspend at the cornerback position because they kind of spent big already in terms of Trey Waynes. And they paid Mike Hilton too, which I love that signing. It's crazy that Awuzie got more than Hilton. Hilton, steal in my opinion. I gave that, spoiler, I gave it an A+. It's weird because Awuzie I view as I like him. I should say I like him better as a slot corner, but he's going to play outside. But Mike Hilton is a slot corner. Awuzie gets paid more because Mike Hilton's going to play slot corner. It's just kind of weird to me, but that's just how it works. But yeah, I kind of figured that, I started to realize they probably wouldn't get William Jackson back because they have so much money invested. If Trey Waynes works out, then it ends up being fantastic, which I think he's an underrated corner. I think he's pretty solid. Hopefully he stays healthy. So it's one of those things that kind of had to be done, so they had to kind of they were kind of firm on getting a guy in that would fall under that price range. I think, there's not too many great options around there, so Awuzie is a solid one. I liked him out of Colorado. That's weird. There's 2 Colorado corners that played together here, Witherspoon and Awuzie. I like both of them a lot, but I did grade Awuzie as a slot corner then. But he's kind of been a roller coaster, up and down, playing, struggling, then okay, there's that guy from Colorado, then struggling again, so back and forth. So hopefully he can figure out, change the scenery, could help. Dolphins signed Jacoby Brissett, 1 year, $5 million, could reach a little more. Guys like Jameis Winston got like the same price, so looking at it like that way, it doesn't look too good because, at the same time, you wish you kind of got a guy that's a little more explosive because, in terms of creating downfield, which is weird because that was kind of Tua's problem last year, but I really still don't label Tua like that because he was not like that at Alabama. We'll see what happens, but Fitzpatrick would come in, he would kind of have those big plays, play hero ball, and it would kind of work. So I feel like you would want that guy as your backup, but Brissett is not that at all. That's kind of his downside. He may take care of the ball. He's pretty tough running. Not going to rack up a bunch of yards at the ground, but he's going to be too careful with the ball maybe, and that will result in small ball. So I wish somebody bigger, but the options were pretty much gone at the same time. So I gave it a B- just because he kind of got the same price point as Jameis Winston I don't like. Yeah, I wish more of an explosive downfield guy, but it is a backup at the end of the day. Not many other options, B-. Texans get Terrence Mitchell. B. You're still wishing for a bigger signing for the Texans. Getting more of a better starting corner. He's going to be a starting corner, so that's kind of the good and the bad. You want them to get a better starting corner, but I think this guy might be starting for them, and it's a pretty cheap starting corner, so that's kind of the good thing. Put it in the middle there. B. Bears get Jermaine Ifedi back, 1 year, 4.25. Pretty much had no choice. There's really no options at right tackle. He was actually playing pretty well at the end of the year. Ideal, if they can't get a quarterback, with that draft pick, if they can upgrade at right tackle for now in the future, that's fantastic. Then, at that time, it may make this one look not as good, but you can't really predict that. It's something they kind of had to do. And again, he played all right at the end of last year. Another one you kind of can argue both sides. So I gave it a B here. So news going down right now. Washington, got William Jackson, 3 year, $42 million, $26 million guaranteed. We'll talk about that. It'll probably be in the next video. We'll be talking about it right now as soon as I sign off right here with you guys on Twitter. We'll be talking about it. So, a lot more big signings to come. Some big-time players out there still, obviously, and we'll grade all those and any of the trades that go down. So, join us for that. Subscribe, smash that like button, turn notifications on, and yeah, make sure you follow that Twitter. Any link that you need will be in the comments, if not the description, but I always pin the important ones in the top of the comment section. That's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.